Unless you've been living under a rock for the past, I want to say maybe a year, you probably know that inflation has been a growing problem in the economy. Us as gig workers are affected just like everyone else. But what are some things that we can do to protect ourselves from inflation, or at the very least, offset some of its effects so it doesn't hurt so much? That's what we're going to be talking about in this video. Hello everyone, this is Elijah with the RideShare Guy. In this video, we're going to be talking about inflation and what are some things that we as gig workers can do to minimize its effects on us. Inflation influences the price of goods, services, and gas prices. These are all things that we as gig workers are relying on in order to make a living. And if we're just going to be honest, not just to make a living, but just to live. According to CNBC, inflation hit a new 40-year high in June, and although it's dropped a few points since then, it doesn't seem like it's going to go down anytime soon. This has caused many people to rethink how they spend their money in all aspects of their lives, especially how they shop. The United States Department of Labor defines inflation as the general upward price movement of goods and services in an economy. To put this another way, inflation shrinks the value of money. The higher the prices, the lesser the dollar's worth. Back in the day, you could buy a paperback book for under $5. Today, the same book costs you around $14 or more. So now that we've properly defined what inflation is, what are some things that we can do as gig workers to help offset it? Well, when it comes to helping offset inflation, since prices are rising and the value of a currency is going down, the only thing you can really do to help offset it is one of two things, or preferably both. You can either increase your income or you can reduce your expenses. These two tactics help to offset the steady rising of prices in the economy so that you can at least keep some pace with it. With that being said, here are 5 ways that as a gig worker, you can help offset the effects of inflation. So the first way, and in my opinion, this is probably the most critical way, is to save on gas any way that you can. There's a variety of different ways that you can do this. The first thing that we recommend is to use the Upside app, which allows you to get cash back at select gas stations for filling up at the pump. Because as gig workers, rideshare drivers, and delivery drivers, we are going to be in our cars using up a lot of gas on a regular basis. So if you can reduce that expense, it's going to go a long way towards evening the equation when it comes to inflation. If you're curious how the Upside app works, we've actually made a tutorial on it linked in the description and in the pinned comment that you can check out after this video. You may want to consider using the Gas Buddy app, as it identifies exactly what prices are at what gas stations, so you can identify what is the best deal in a given area at any given time. The second way that you can help offset the effects of inflation on you is to save money on shopping. This is once again a necessary expense that all of us have. We all need to eat, we all need to buy things, but there are certain apps that you can use to get select cash back or get discounts while you're shopping. For example, the Rakuten app and browser extension is a good way that you can identify certain discounts and in some cases get cash back. The Fetch Rewards app is a great app that can be used to build up points, and these points can be accrued to get discounts on select items in stores. And the Ibotta app is an app that allows you to get cash back at various places where you may already be shopping. Now, these apps individually may not be doing too much of a dent in terms of balancing the equation, but once you combine them, these discounts and cash back really start to add up. And in an economy where inflation is a big problem, any edge that you can get in terms of reducing your expenses should be very welcomed. Now, we've covered more defensive ways of dealing with this, which involves reducing your expenses, but let's go on the offensive with these next 3 ways, which steer towards making more money as gig workers. So the third way that you can help offset the effects of inflation, and I think that everyone should be doing this in this day and age, is to multi-app. So since the economy is slow right now and inflation is rising, that does mean that demand on each individual app could be going down. You can help offset this by multi-apping. So for instance, if you're a rideshare driver, you may be driving for Uber, you should also be signed up for Lyft and you can kick that on. If you're a delivery driver, you may be driving just for Doordash right now. Why not add Grubhub and Uber Eats to the mix? Maybe even Instacart or Shipt if you're willing to do some grocery shopping. If you choose a multi-app, this will give you the ability to maximize your time, because one thing we don't want as gig workers is we don't want to just be sitting in the car just like me, not getting requests. Of course, I'm recording this video, so that's acceptable in this moment. But once I finish this video, when the apps go on, I want to get a ping as soon as possible so my wheels can be turning so I can be making money. You don't want to have that much downtime when it comes to working for the gig apps. And you can maximize your active paid time by including more than one app. Now, since we just talked about demand and staying busy, this leads us into the fourth way that you can hedge against inflation, is to know exactly what industries are going to be busiest at what times. What I mean by that is you have rideshare times, then you have delivery times, you have shopping times, and this is all determined by your customer demand. You want to be online working when you'll have the highest chance of getting requests in the selected industry. So for example, for the delivery industry, a peak time to turn the apps on is between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. because people are at work and they're ordering lunch. Continuing with the delivery industry, it tends to be slower between the hours of 3 and 5. So maybe that's a good time for you to grab something to eat if you're just going to be doing delivery. It starts to pick back up between 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. So that's another good time to go online if you want to be delivering food. The same applies for rideshare. Between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m., people usually need rides to go to work. It's usually slow between 10 and 2 p.m., but that's a great time to turn the delivery apps on. Then it picks back up around rush hour between 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. where people need rides to go home. Now, one thing to keep in mind is everything I mentioned is generally universal across all markets because these are determined by cycles and times in our economy. But there are market-specific things that you probably should be keeping an eye out. You may find that it's busy at a certain time in a certain area. You should make a mental note of that so that you can take advantage of it as long as it lasts. We've made videos and written articles about when is it the best time to drive for delivery, and even when it's best to be a shopper with Instacart or Shipt. So you want to check those resources out if you want more information on this. But just to summarize this way to hedge against inflation, you want to keep this in mind because you do want to maximize the money that you can make when you're sitting in your car. The fifth and last way that you can hedge against inflation is to make sure you take advantage of the tax deductions that you can as a gig worker. Now, I do need to give a disclaimer that I am not a tax professional, but with that being said, there are some deductions that you could be taking advantage of that can lower your taxable income. And anything that you can do to reduce your expenses in general should be done. And since taxes is our biggest expense, with gas paying probably a close second, if you can do something to offset those taxes, that will help in terms of just the amount of money that you're making, which in turn will help take the sting out of the inflation hit that we're all getting hit by. Some people might consider taxes as a complicated matter, but as gig workers, I always ask the following question. Which method when it comes to taxes is best for you to use? Is it the standard mileage deduction or is it the actual expense method? Once you determine which one of those you want to go with, that lays the framework for what deductions you should be looking for when it comes to maximizing your tax deductions. Of course, we made a great video on this matter that you can check out in the description or in the pinned comment in terms of assistance with filing taxes as a gig worker. Now, I will say that if it makes sense, this might be something that you might want to hire an official tax professional to do for you. That's what I do. I just keep accurate records and give it to my tax guy, and they file the taxes for me because they have a lot more knowledge on taxes than I do, and they can get me more deductions because I didn't study the tax code. They did, so they know about stuff that I wouldn't have known about. Of course, whether you decide to hire someone or file them yourself, that's a personal decision. But just keep in mind that you should be trying to maximize your tax deductions, and there are a lot of deductions that we can use as gig workers. So with that being said, we've talked about inflation, the effects it has on us as gig workers, and 5 ways that can help you offset those effects of inflation. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Or if you personally have a way that you're dealing with this in terms of offsetting inflation, share it with the rest of the community. Maybe we can all benefit from it. With that being said, this has been Elijah with the RideShare Guy, signing off. If you don't take anything from this video though, I personally recommend that you at the very minimum sign up for the Upside app, because that helps you to save on gas, which is such a big expense. If you're curious on how to use Upside, you can check out this tutorial that we made on the app, which goes over exactly how it works and how you can get cash back while filling up at the pump. I'll catch you in the next video. Be safe and be profitable, everyone.